Hi, this is Heather from easyhealthybread.com, and today we're going to make a easy, healthy, and simple no-knead recipe for 100% whole wheat pizza dough. Pizza dough is a great thing to switch completely to whole wheat. With all the toppings, you can barely even taste the difference, or not taste it at all. And this recipe you can keep in the fridge for up to 2 weeks and use it anytime you want. It is literally one of the simplest methods out there for making bread. It's called no knead, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with 1 3/4 cups warm water. You're just going to want the tap water to be pretty much as hot as your skin can handle, but nothing near boiling because that will kill the yeast. Then we're going to do 1 tablespoon of yeast. I keep mine in the fridge and it keeps it fresh. So I start with the water and the yeast just because it's easier to mix it later. Some recipes might switch it up, but in this recipe it doesn't matter which order you put the ingredients in. We're literally just going to put them all in and mix it up. So next I'm going to put in half a tablespoon of salt. With any recipe that includes salt in bread, it's purely for taste. So if you are trying to cut down your salt, you can leave it out or reduce it. It's just for taste. I leave it in because I like it. Then we're going to do 3 tablespoons of vital wheat gluten. So vital wheat gluten we talked about last week, but it's an important thing when cooking with whole grains because it allows the gluten to develop. Whole wheat flour has less gluten, so this adds more back in and it makes your dough so it's elastic and will rise. So just 3. I kind of just eyeball it. It's not super accurate. 1, 2, 3. So you're good there. Then we're going to add a half a cup of olive oil, which I already have measured out. So we have everything but the bread or the flour in here. This recipe takes 3.5 cups of flour, and we're just going to measure that out. Scoop and sweep method, like I mentioned last week. You just scoop it out of your container. And then sweep the back with the back of your knife. Bam. 1. 2. 3 and a half. There we go. So now we're just going to mix it up. I use a wooden spoon. Since this recipe is a little smaller, my mixer won't really mix it very well, so I make this one by hand. It takes a little longer to mix it yourself. One thing you will notice that this dough is going to be a lot more wet than typical types of dough. So that's the hallmark of the no knead, is that it's a wet dough, and that's because you don't have to knead it, so that's the reason that it's like that, and you can store it. One thing that makes this dough in particular great for pizza is because it has the olive oil in there, so it's just like a good flavor combo for most pizzas. You can probably take any no-knead bread and make pizza out of it, but I just like to use this one because it's delicious with the olive oil in there. It's a healthy fat, which is really a good combo with the protein and fiber of the whole wheat bread. So, there we go. A lot of times I actually make this right in the Tupperware since you can keep it in the fridge, but I just thought it would be a little bit easier to see to do it in the glass bowl today. But a lot of times I just make this right in the Tupperware, and it comes together really fast. It's a little easier to stir in a wide mouth bowl. The Tupperware I use is tall and narrow, and it's a little hard to incorporate it all. But once it looks pretty much all incorporated, and kind of all the same texture, then you're done. And we're going to let it sit on the counter for 2 hours. that's going to rise. I'll show you what it looks like after 2 hours, but then you can literally either, if you made it in a Tupperware, pop it in the fridge, cover this, pop it in the fridge, or move it into a Tupperware and put it in the fridge. And you can use it anytime for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to let it rise. We'll come back and show you what it looks like after it's risen, and we'll start making that pizza. So we'll get back to you in just a second. This is Heather from easyhealthybread.com. We're back and we're going to finish up making that 100% whole wheat pizza dough. So we've let the dough sit for 2 hours out on the counter. I just covered it lightly with some plastic wrap. This is what it looks like. It rose quite a bit, and I put it in the fridge for a little bit. You can put it in the fridge overnight, use it tomorrow. Like I said, it can stay in the fridge for 2 weeks. So whenever you're ready to make the pizza, pull it out of the fridge. You can use it right after it has been sitting out on the counter, but it's going to be a little easier to work with if you put it in the fridge, just because it's cool. It won't be quite as sticky. So I have a piece of parchment down here. I'm going to take some of the whole wheat flour. I'm going to put some down so we don't get sticky. We're going to have to probably put quite a bit down because it's going to be really sticky. So we got some, and then we're going to drizzle some over the bread. Now I'm going to make a personal size pizza, so I'm probably going to just grab like maybe a ball like this big. So get your hands nice and floury if you can, and just grab a piece. The dough is going to fall a lot, especially this fresh dough is going to fall quite a bit when you grab it, like I said. So we got a piece like this. Now I'm going to put a little more flour on the top of it, and then I'm going to take the center of the bread and pull it around and under. Around and under, around and under, just rotating the bread around and under, around and under, around and under, until you get this nice smooth ball. So there you go. You can see the bottom has all the edges, but that's fine. We're going to set it right on the ground here. I'm going to move this. So I'm going to put some more flour over the top. Like I said, it's going to be pretty sticky, and we're going to start rolling it out. So how thin you roll it is really your preference, whether you like the chewier crust or the thin crust. If you leave it too thick though, it is going to puff up a little bit in the oven, so make it a little bit thinner than you normally would, and it'll rise a little bit as you bake it. So you're going to kind of just want to watch and make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom. Just get more flour under there. I'm actually going to flip mine over. So just going to stretch it out a little bit. Whole wheat bread is awesome for making pizza because it doesn't spring back like white flour will. Like we've talked about with the gluten, it has less, so it doesn't resist as much. It's going to be a lot easier to roll out than a white bread dough. So I'm just going to push it out. It's kind of a nice way to do it because then you kind of develop the ridge like you have for pizza crust. Doesn't have to look perfect because you've just seen it at home, and it's going to be delicious no matter what it looks like. So I'm just going to take a little more flour and roll it a little bit thinner. I like mine on the crispy side, so I roll mine a little thinner, and then I can fit more toppings on there. So that's probably about as thin as I want mine to be. Just try and make it kind of a circle. Like I said, not really that important. So you can see it's going to spring back in a little bit, but not too much. Now if you want the outside to be raised like a pizza you'd get at the store or for takeout, what you can do is you can fold over the edges like this and just kind of pinch them as you go around. And then you'll get that big crust on the outside. It makes it a little easier to hold while you're eating it. So you can just go around and do that. Just pinch and tuck. Just like that. Okay, so now would be the point where you're going to put on your toppings. I'm just going to do like spiced cheese and pepperoni. You can put on whatever kind of sauce you like, marinara, ranch, olive oil. I just do spices these days because it just tastes delicious to me. So I'm just going to do some minced garlic. And I just kind of spread it around. And I think this is delicious, plus garlic is really good for you, especially during flu season. It's supposed to have some sort of immune boosting benefits, so maybe good to add a little extra today. So we do that. Then I do some dried minced onions, because I hate chopping onions, it makes me cry. And this is delicious, adds a good flavor to your pizza. So I just dab some on. And then I like smoked paprika because it gives a little smoky flavor and it's nice and pretty. So I do a little of that under there as well. And then I just add cheese. So I have a mixture of whole milk mozzarella that I shredded up. And I'm just going to put some on there. Whole milk mozzarella is super creamy. You could of course use part skim. The cheese will melt down quite a bit, so you'll probably want to use like a little bit more than you think to get it really covered if you really like cheese. And then since mozzarella is not very flavorful, it's mostly creamy, I add a little sharp cheddar in there, which I think is delicious. So I just have some regular pepperoni from the store. I love pepperoni, it's like one of my favorites, so it's always a treat to have a little pepperoni pizza. And you don't have to keep them in, I kind of like to shred it up and get like smaller pieces. I think it's easier to eat that way. So shred them up. Especially for these small personal size pizza, kind of could fit it on there a little better than giant rounds of pepperoni. So I'm going to put a little bit on top of that. And then a little bit more onion. And then I'm going to take one of my favorite gadgets, the pizza peel. I'm going to put it right under on the parchment and I'm going to pop it in the oven. So I'm putting it in the oven at 450 degrees. For a personal size pizza like this, it's probably going to take between 8 and 10 minutes. But just check it when it looks melted and the crust looks as done as you'd like it to be. You should be all set. I will be back here and cutting this open for a slice in just a minute. Okay, we're back and we are going to pull the pizza out of the oven and dig in. So I cooked it right on the parchment. I'm going to bring it right over to the cutting board. And we're going to cut it. It's a little too hot to eat, but there you have it, your easy, healthy, whole wheat pizza. And done in just under a few minutes. So we'll see you next time for episode 3 at easyhealthybread.com. Hi, I'm Heather from easyhealthybread.com, and we're going to give you some quick tips on how to be successful with your 100% whole wheat pizza. So my number one tip is to use parchment paper. You can see my pizza sitting on it right here, and it saves cleanup and makes your pizza much easier to transfer to the oven. Traditionally, people make their pizza over cornmeal on this pizza peel right here and shove it into the oven with a quick wrist movement, but if you don't have enough cornmeal or you're not confident, your pizza could end up all over your oven and totally ruined. It'd still be edible, but it's going to cook kind of weird and it's definitely not going to look very nice. So the parchment I make the pizza right on the parchment, I roll it out on there, I transfer it into the oven on there and pull it right out, and it just makes things super easy, and it prevents your counter from getting totally covered in flour, so you don't have to worry about that later. You can literally just recycle it after you're done. My second tip would be use a pizza stone. It works fantastic for so many types of bread, especially pizza. The bottom is going to get nice and crispy, and it's going to keep the temperature of your oven really consistent. My third tip is to use leftovers. Pizza is great for using up any leftovers. Leftover cooked broccoli, leftover chicken, all sorts of stuff that you just have a little bit of, throw it on a pizza. You'd be surprised how delicious it can be, and it saves all the space in your fridge and is totally money saving as well. My fourth tip is to refrigerate that dough. After we mixed it up and let it sit on the counter, we refrigerated it. Once it's cooled down, it is so much easier to work with. You need less flour, it's less sticky, it just works better. So refrigerate it if you have time. And my fifth and final tip is to save some for later. Your pizza works great the next day. You can even freeze it. I have cut up the pizzas, frozen them, put them in Ziplocs, and taken them to work before, and just put them in the toaster oven or the microwave at work, and they're awesome the next day or even the day after that. So if you're thinking about just making a pizza for tonight, think about making 2, or at least a little bit more, so you have some for tomorrow. And there you have it, my top 5 tips for having an awesome whole wheat pizza. Thanks!